how do you know if your BIM is fully baked?
We've got to taste it.
We do have to
Right?
taste it. Oh,
Or just
can
by looking.
so here, this is banana bread.
Is that what
Man,
that is?
I love banana bread. I must say I love one of those more than the other. And having an uncooked banana bread loaf, but having a beautifully cooked, perfectly out of the oven, nice and warm, put some ice cream on, maybe some cream as well.
You're making me hungry.
That is perfect. So a perfectly baked BIM would be a good thing, yeah? So how do you know when it's ready? How do you know when BIM is ready? In our analogy with baking, there are certain things you can go through. You follow a recipe, you follow timing, etc. But for us,
Well, we can't taste our BIM.
how do we how do we know? How do we know it's ready?
Well, we usually assume, for one, or we're told that it's ready, right?
Yep.
At some point.
So somebody says, "Here you go.
Yeah, here you
Here's a
go."
model," or
And-
"There's a deadline," and even if it's ready or not, it has to be delivered on that deadline.
And that's one of the major problems that we have today, that we see every day, is
Creating
there's a major
loads of
deadline,
bottlenecks.
and there was no deadline. There's a start date and a due date, and then everyone shows up on that due date and says, "Here you go." And then what happens? There's so much going on. There's clashes, issues, things missing, and items, and you can really come up with
Lots of finger pointing.
Yeah, if you could really come up with a smaller bite size process to kind of deliver and say, hey, maybe we can get the first floor coordinated.
Yep.
Then we'll get to the second and the third. And, now it doesn't seem like I could resolve, 150 clashes. But if I'm feeling like I'm resolving 150 clashes in a day, that's not right. But if I resolve 150 clashes in say, a month's time, over time, it's not that bad. So really, sequencing and into these bite-sized pieces where you can deliver on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, instead of once is a lot more efficient.
So yeah, we've seen using a Kanban board, understanding the tasks, and then having each person who's responsible for those tasks simply drag and drop to show that they've got something that's ready for review. It doesn't have to be a whole model. It could be down to a set of elements. This is ready for your review, and being notified about that now, that's been really powerful. So how do you, once you know that something in a bite-sized form is ready, what do you check? How do you check it? How do you understand what to check? Well, it would be great if you could have the BIM execution plan or the BIM requirements, the BIM scope, the BIM deliverables, the requirements for that information delivery milestone in the same place as the BIM. The BEP plus the BIM on the same platform, that would be pretty cool, pretty useful.
Imagine if it was connected.
Imagine if it was connected, if those requirements and the model were connected. That would be pretty cool. And then imagine, because it's really tough to, if you even have the model delivered at the same time, it's tough to review if, in this example, the stairs or the light fixtures have been modeled in the right way because they're distributed around the whole building.
Yeah, it's one thing for BIM, and it's not so much about the design sometimes. It's not so much that I'm here to review the design.
Like where it
I'm
is.
getting into, I want to see all the elements, I want to see the detail, I want to see the information required. Imagine if I could just bunch those into a group and then look at them either one by one or as a group of elements.
It's like going through the store and you walk through the aisle and you see everything stacked up on the shelves.
Clean up on aisle 4.
So imagine if you could explode the building, sort it into these groups so that you could go through the QA process a lot more cleanly, a lot more easily, rather than going through every single floor and trying to understand.
Yeah, it's one of the features that came out of that Forge.
So what to check? So we've talked about like when to check, but what do you actually need to check? What do you need to look at? There's a lot potentially. It depends on why you're going to create the model, but for that information delivery milestone, if you have a set of requirements, maybe there's warranty details like this example and material that is required, and going through that process to check that the geometry and the information requirements are present is an important step. So rather than producing that model and then delivering it for somebody else before you've checked it, really, really powerful. So once you go through that, how do you track the progress? How do you make sure that you are in compliance?
Yeah, usually it's just a checklist that you went through and you're just kind of checking them off one by one, and then you kind of go and say, hey, looks like I'm 50% complete. But imagine if you can actually connect that to your BIM task, your BIM requirements, and visually see the model and filter and hide what's been verified, what's been
get
completed.
Updates instantly. Every time you check off a task, you can see visually in the model what has been checked off. That would be pretty cool. And then how about making sure that when you have a model and that checklist is finished, that is the only time that you then share and publish
Right.
that model.
Yeah, and that's a really great way to, that I don't have to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Clive, is this model ready for me to, run an analysis or anything?" I'll get notified.
How about that?
I'll
How
get
about getting
notified
notified
when
when,
it's ready. The whole team will get notified when it's ready. We'll keep that.
when it's fully baked?
Yeah, when it's fully baked, everyone gets a piece of the pie or the cake.
A piece of the cake. I love it. So we're talking about BIM compliance, and it's really important, but it's a difficult part of the process when you get a model or you get lots of models all at the same time and you haven't really got a way of checking them against what those requirements were in the first place. So we talk about consolidating the requirements, making sure that you're reviewing them against the checklist before you share and publish them. So in conclusion, we talked a lot about the motivations of people, but how to get that BIM that you paid for is a series of steps, and it starts from understanding why people are going to do BIM in the first place.
Understanding what you wanted to pay for and what is it that you really wanted out of that model, and making sure that if you understood that, did everyone else understand that? And that's we can't tell you guys enough how important it is to not just let the guy in the meeting know what is required and what you expect, but somehow getting it to everyone involved, from the designers, the PMs, the interns that are also in the project modeling. Everyone needs to know what those requirements are. So you need to somehow get all that information out to them and notify them when there's updates and when there's changes.
Yep. So being able to sequence, track, manage those, and make sure that when you're reviewing them, that it's connected with the requirements and the deliverables both connected, and then having that visual process to review and understand the progress so you can see and track and see how much of a model deliverable has been approved, not having to approve the whole thing before you then share it, but being able to share and publish as you go when it's fully baked. Only publish a model when it's fully baked.